ever stopped to wonder, what if the Romans never invented their famous baths? How different would the Roman world, and even our world today, actually be? Let's start with the most obvious impact: public health and hygiene. The Roman baths, or thermae, were masterpieces of hydraulic engineering. They brought fresh, clean water into crowded cities and provided a place for millions to wash away the grime of daily life. Without them, Roman cities would have been significantly dirtier. Imagine Rome, a city of 1 million people, with no systematic way for the average person to bathe regularly. The streets would have been filthier, and the spread of disease would likely have been much more rampant. Epidemics that were already a problem could have been catastrophically worse, potentially leading to a much lower population density and a higher mortality rate. The Romans were surprisingly health-conscious for their time, and the baths were central to that. Removing them from the equation paints a pretty bleak and smelly picture, but the impact goes far beyond just hygiene. Roman baths were the equivalent of our community centers, cafes, gyms, and social media, all rolled into one. It was where senators made deals, poets recited their latest works, merchants networked, and friends just hung out. The baths were a great social leveler. While there were separate, more luxurious sections for the wealthy, the main areas were open to almost everyone, rich or poor, for a very small fee, or even for free. This daily mixing of different social classes was unique in the ancient world. Without the baths, Roman society might have become much more stratified and segregated. The rich would have stayed in their private villas, and the poor in their crowded tenements, with far fewer opportunities for interaction. This could have led to greater social unrest and a weaker sense of shared Roman identity, the common ground where a plebeian could rub shoulders, quite literally, with a patrician would have vanished. Let's think about business and politics. The baths were buzzing with activity. Business deals were negotiated in the warm waters of the tepidarium, and political alliances were forged in the steam of the caldarium. It was an informal, relaxed environment where people let their guard down. Important information was exchanged, gossip was spread, and public opinion was shaped. If this central hub for networking didn't exist, where would these interactions have happened? Perhaps more formally in the forum, but the unique casual atmosphere of the baths was key. The flow of information would have been slower and more controlled, likely concentrated in the hands of the elite. The political landscape of Rome could have been far less dynamic and more rigid without this daily melting pot of ideas and influence. And what about art and architecture? The grand bathhouses, like the Baths of Caracalla or Diocletian, were architectural marvels. They pushed the boundaries of engineering with their massive domes, arches, and vaulted ceilings. The invention of concrete was perfected and used on an unprecedented scale to create these colossal structures. The interiors were lavishly decorated with mosaics, statues, and frescoes. These buildings were a statement of Roman power and ingenuity. Without the demand for such large, complex public buildings, would Roman architecture have evolved in the same way? Perhaps their engineering prowess would have been directed elsewhere, but it's hard to imagine what could have spurred the same level of innovation in large-scale public construction. The majestic ruins that still inspire us today might simply not exist. The skills honed in building the baths were later applied to other structures, like basilicas and palaces, so the ripple effect on architecture would be enormous. Now, let's consider daily life and leisure. For the average Roman, life was hard. The baths offered an escape. After a long day of labor, a citizen could go to the baths to relax, exercise, get a massage, read in the library, or just chat with friends. It was a core part of the Roman concept of otium, or leisure. This wasn't just about lazing around, it was about enriching the mind and body. Without the baths, what would people have done for fun? Sure, there were the games at the Colosseum and the chariot races, but those were special events. The baths were a daily, affordable luxury. Their absence would have made everyday life for the Roman populace much duller and more stressful. This lack of a positive outlet could have led to more social problems and a generally unhappier, less content population. The state-sponsored entertainment and relaxation provided by the baths was a crucial tool for keeping the masses content, a policy famously known as bread and circuses. Without the circuses of the bathhouse, the bread alone might not have been enough. The influence of Roman bathing culture extended far beyond the fall of the empire. The concept of the public bath was adopted and adapted by other cultures, most notably in the Islamic world with the hammam, or Turkish bath, and it saw a revival in Europe centuries later. The engineering principles, from heating systems like the hypocaust to the plumbing, laid the groundwork for modern sanitation. If the Romans had never developed this culture, the very idea of public wellness and sanitation might have taken centuries longer to develop. We take public swimming pools, gyms, and spas for granted, but their ideological ancestor is the Roman thermae. Without that powerful precedent, the path to our modern amenities would have been much less clear. Our entire relationship with water, cleanliness, and public space might look very different. So, to sum it up, a Roman world without the baths would be almost unrecognizable. It would be a dirtier, sicker, and more socially divided world. Its architecture would be less grand, its politics less dynamic, and the daily lives of its citizens far more grim. The baths were not just a luxury, they were a fundamental pillar of Roman civilization, shaping its health, society, engineering, and culture in profound ways. Their absence would have created a power vacuum in the daily life of the empire, leaving a void that no other institution could have easily filled. It's a powerful reminder that sometimes it's the simple, everyday things, like taking a bath, that have the biggest impact on history. What do you think? How else would the world be different if the Romans never built their famous baths? Subscribe and hit that notification bell so you do not miss our next historical deep dive. Remy signing off, stay safe and stay curious. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.